Good morning, everybody. You're welcome. Everybody here, we have people in person and we have people virtually attending. So we're excited to have you for our second California One CEPIP Grant. We have folks from different districts in our area, and we also have folks from the Office of Public Health from Stefan County. And we are delighted to have you here today. So thank you everybody for being here. This is our first event in the new educational resource room. So we are hoping that all of our technology works like we dream that it should. So anyways, today we are here to have a really good walkthrough, spend some time digging a little deeper on what equity means and looking at hopefully leadership and teaching practices. So we're delighted you're here today, and it is my great honor to introduce to you our speaker who is coordinating and making all this amazing learning for us today. This is Edwin Javius. He is the CEO of EDEquity, and we are honored that he's part of our California One CEPIP grant, and he's officially our equity expert. We have 4, but he's probably, one of our best equity experts. No offense. But at any rate, we are just delighted to have you here. And Edwin, many of you already know because he has been doing this work for a long time. So I'll let you explain how long.
Okay.
But we are honored to have him here today. So everyone.
All right. I'm excited. This is my first Zoom thing here. So I have ADHD. So if I'm looking at 2 screens, just hang out with me. Don't 504 me. Don't move me up the pyramid or anything like that. I'm just a little squirrely black boy that's going to be walking around. Yeah.
Just to let you know, Edwin, from about this chair to Myra is about where your Zoom screen is for the virtual audience.
Okay. And I probably would not adhere to those norms, but that's okay.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. I'm going to lecture by proximity. So we're going to be doing a lot of talking. This will not be a sit and get because of the technology, if you will. You guys are my students for the next couple of hours. We're going to engage in some deep learning and experiential learning. And I know the packet is pretty thick and a lot of tools are in the packet. So you can take that back to the Ponderosa and start using it upon when you get back to your place of work. I come to you as a practitioner. I had the pleasure of being a world history teacher at Oak Grove High School, as well as Mount Pleasant High School. So I come to you as a practitioner. The only thing I know how to do is teach. So for the next several hours, if I do not switch up my activities every 7 minutes, I'm going to lose my boys. All right? They're going to find a way to want to raise their hand to go to the restroom. They're going to, when I'm lecturing, they're going to raise their hand and says, could I sharpen my pencil? And just because the kids are sore. And we know sometimes, even in elementary, kids don't know how to crisscross applesauce. When I grew up in San Francisco in the projects. And crisscross applesauce was never taught to me. That was not a cultural thing that was engaged in our household. When we sat on carpet time, my brothers and I, we did Darwinism. It was the survival of the fittest. We did dominoes. So needless to say, when I came to school, there was a cultural incongruency of my house to school expectation. It was very unnatural for me coming to kindergarten to walk like this. And we know that's how we indoctrinate kindergarten students. I had swag, right? I had strong with amazing gifts, right? I needed to touch stuff. So needless to say, I got in trouble a little bit in kindergarten, right? And it was interesting because in our household, our mom used to have us go to the store and talk to adults all the time. So I had to evaluate, synthesize, and analyze my learning environment every single day. I came to school with common core traits, DOK 3 and 4. But the teacher didn't know because I didn't know how to crisscross applesauce, all right? So I finally learned how to sit down on the carpet. I wasn't pulling on Sally's hair, right? And the teacher was reading a big book. And the big book was on season. I'm looking at the pictures, looking at the leaves, they're falling down. And I shouted it out, seasons. It's a season because we're doing what season it was. I was met with my first pedagogical strategy in school. It was, shh, we're not there yet. So needless to say, when we got on page 7 and it was time for the core response, I didn't engage. I didn't know the norms of school. And you have some babies at your place who are just learning how to do school. They are saltwater fish in a freshwater environment. What happens when you put a saltwater fish in freshwater environment? What happens? It doesn't die yet. It hemorrhages, it suffocates. We tear to it, tear through. If it just moves up the pyramid, all right? It moves up the pyramid. So I'm going to ask us for just today, and you can walk away with it. How do we put a little bit of salt into our pyramid? Anybody heard of Lowry's? Lowry's seasoned salt makes everything taste good. Anybody heard of tahini? So when we talk about culture, we're just saying, what is the adaptation that we can put into the dominant curriculum so saltwater fish can survive? Because if we're looking at disproportionality, they're moving up the pyramid pretty fast. Or I don't know if it's pyramid now, it's an umbrella, whatever we want to call it. All right, they're moving up fast. So this is what we're going to engage in throughout. All right, again, this is not going to be a sit and get. We're going to talk. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to supervise. So if I come to your table, do not stop talking. I want you to engage. I'm going to eventually ask these two beautiful ladies to possibly sit over there, or so we can engage. We want us to be less guarded and not knowing. It's okay not to know, but it's not okay being okay not knowing. Okay, so I want you to dive in. I need everyone in the swimming pool. Okay, so we're gonna put everybody in the swimming pool. All right. So what I'm gonna have you do right now. Well, one other thing. I am an ESL learner. All right. Academic language was not my primary dialect. The African American dialect was my primary dialect. And every once in a while, it creeps into my presentation. Okay, it creeps into my presentation. Instead of mother, I may say mama. And I may say y'all every once in a while. And I'm gonna ask you guys, because sometimes I have to make sense of the academic language through my primary dialect. So everybody, that's how I'm gonna develop schema. So as Paris talks about in sustaining culture, culturally sustaining teaching, is how do you validate my language so I can make sense of the academic language? Because sometimes a teacher would say to me, don't bring that slang into my classroom. What I'm trying to do is develop schema, as Vygotsky, Piaget, and Forsyth talked about. I got to develop schema through my primary dialect. That's why some of our babies speak in Spanish, so they can understand this academic language. So could I get permission, thumbs up, and even from the folks in the Zoom, could I get thumbs up? Could I go back and forth with my lexicon? Because I don't want nobody to deem me on the e-bounce that his verb tense didn't agree, okay? So I really appreciate that, and I'm gonna ask for permission, okay? I'm gonna ask for permission, all right? So we're gonna do our first activity, okay? Again, I am the CEO, president of EDEquity. We work with schools across the nation, and we work with high-performance schools and low-performance schools on working with, I spend 265 days out of the year working with big kids so the little kids can show their brilliance. And we know that big kids love professional development, all right? So this is what I do. We work in about 7 states right now, doing a lot of work with CCEE and professional learning networks. And actually, I'm a teacher here at LEAP as well. So I don't know what to do, but just teach. That's what I do, okay? That's what I do. So let's do this. Let's find, as part of the norm, anybody heard of Harry Wong? Harry Wong says you have to have rituals and routines in the classroom. If you don't, you're gonna be looking for a PBIS strategy around October, all right? So if you don't have rituals and routines in the classroom, when you have your baby start talking, you're going to be doing this a lot. Shh, come on back, stop, come on back. And then you're going to call on that kid that you haven't had a relationship with. And you say, hey, Arturos, be quiet, come on back to me. And he's going to say, why are you picking on me? Everybody else is talking. Now we got a power struggle. And then you're going to end up sending the 5-page referral because he's being defiant. And you really set him up. You really set him up because you didn't say in your rituals and routine, hey, people come back. So everybody do this. That doesn't mean we're at a deaf poetry slam. That means I want you to come back to me. Okay, so as we're talking and I do this, I'm gonna have you come back because I'm not gonna be the teacher going, shh, be quiet, because I'm gonna tell you from a cultural standpoint, in our household, whenever I heard shh, it came with a pop. Like in church, you said, shh, be quiet, it typically came with a pop. So whenever a teacher would say shh, I would flinch, if you will. Again, I was a saltwater fish swimming in fresh water. And some of your kids are swimming in fresh water without the Lowry salt. What I'm gonna have you do right now, I want you to find the youngest person at your table. I didn't think that activity was gonna be that exciting. Apparently, you guys are ready to go, ready to rock roll. All right, so what I want you to do right now, I want you to find the most seasoned person at your table. That can be older or spicy, however you want to do that. All right, here we go. Okay, as we go through the presentation, I'm not one of those guys that's going to do PowerPoint to prove that that's a strategy. So you guys are going to engage in experiential learning, so you're actually going to live the strategy. Okay, so you guys are students, so I'll highlight, hey, this is a strategy that you can use and so on and so forth. All right, there are 10 MTSS strategies that's part of the packet, if you will. So if you have to go back into that to find those, we'll get to that part. There are going to be a cornucopia of strategies given, but I want to kind of engage you in the strategy. So the first strategy I just did was numbered heads. Anybody heard of numbered heads? That comes out of the Kagan Cooperative Group. I'm going old school, y'all. Okay, I'm going to tell you, there's nothing new in education. There's nothing new in education. There's nothing new to get Black and brown boys to learn at high levels. Right? All this, the RTI, the MTSS, all that stuff is like the Afro. It keeps coming back. You know, all this stuff just keeps coming back. There's really nothing new in education. So looking for the silver bullet, you know what it's called? Planning. I know that wasn't sexy. But teachers who plan tend to hit the mark better than those who don't. So if you need the silver bullet, when we walk through schools and engage folks in schools, we just say, hey, I don't want to go to the classroom. I want to go to the collaboration. The collaboration will tell me if rigor is going to be taught in the classroom. Because rigor is not lost in the classroom, it's lost in the planning. You can't wing rigor. You can't do that. You can't do that sophisticated sentence frame because Jesus is going to say, what the heck are you talking about? The principal must be in the back somewhere, right? You can't wing that. So as we start, go back to the Ponderosa, but I would do an audit on how teachers plan. And I know sometimes we've negotiated that away in contracts. I hate to say that the principal or the leader can't go in and watch planning, so the teachers plan on their own. But we lose rigor in the planning, okay? Lose the rigor in the planning. What I'm gonna have you do right now, you have a white sheet of paper on your desk. If you can create a name plate for me, okay? And the big idea is, I did that on purpose. Stay with me. Again, a strategy. People are always asking, Edwin, what is the equity strategy? This is how we set kids up. I gave you a manipulative and I start talking. Can't do both. The boys don't want to touch it, They want to throw around it. They want to see what's on both sides. Do we get to eat it? They want to do something else other than listen to me. So now I'm already into my tier 1 intervention just because I got to either give my kids opportunities to play with the manipulative for 3 or 4 seconds. Come on back. Now I'm going to give the direction, or I give the direction first and then give them the manipulative. Sometimes we set kids up just on our pedagogy. Does that make sense? Okay, we do that a lot, especially when we're giving the worksheets and the kids like, hey, how many pages is it? Is it for homework? Do we do the odds and even? And the teacher starts talking. Some kids get lost. A lot of kids get lost. So the big idea has to stand up on your desk. You can go hamburger or hot dog, right? And use the marker that's in the tub. I want you to tell me your name and one interesting fact you want me to know about you underneath your name. I'm on a model list. My name is Edwin Javis. I love to shop. I'm a professional shopper. I got stock at Nordstrom's, y'all. And I love to play golf. I love to play golf. So let's go ahead. Big ideas got to stand up on your desk. Okay, here we go. It's interesting. California is very data-driven. Very data-driven. We have data machines all over the place. We have Ferraris as data machines. We can do everything we want with data. But to me, the most interesting data in school is what the babies bring to the schoolhouse. So now I know something about my students after 3 o'clock. So when I'm trying to develop a relationship, or if I'm going to develop some culturally relevant or culturally responsive or culturally conscious or culturally sustaining curriculum, now I need to know something about my babies to make the connection. Son and I have not connected. He's in my classroom. He's in my classroom. I'm his math teacher. He and I just not connected yet. He is having I'm having a hard time with him. He's having a hard time connecting to converting fractions to decimals. And a lot of kids struggle with those irrational numbers, right? And fractions, right? So what I'm going to do, since I know something about some, right? Instead of me giving them the dreaded worksheet, remember they did those back in the day? I'm dating myself. You get high on the glue. No, I'm just kidding. I'm dating myself. I am going to bring in Stefan Curry's free throw percentages. I'm going to bring in the box scores. So when I do my small group or do some individual, I'm going to say, hey, Stephen Curry shot like 7 out of 10. Why? Because he is so dialed into basketball. So I'm going to teach not about the Warriors. I'm going to teach converting fractions to decimals. So I'm going to bring in something that's relevant to him. How often do we go into collaboration and say, what do we know about the babies after 3? Positively. And then convert that into higher order thinking DOK lessons, if you will. So I know something about my students after 3 o'clock. I do this. Anybody heard, this is old school. Remember Scholastic had All About Me posters? Ooh, I'm going back, girl. I'm going back. They still have them? I'm going to say this. I'm not sure the teachers are using that as a data piece for their MTSS. See, they're looking at behavior plans. They're looking at Swiss data. They're looking at some other data pieces. But the baby just says, I like basketball. I love me Mickey Mouse. I have 6 brothers and sisters, and I'm the oldest. And if I'm a Latino student, what does that really mean culturally? That may mean something. What happens if I'm the only boy of girls in a Latino family? That means something, if you will. And I'm not sure we're extrapolating that type of data, if you will. Because when we don't connect to them, you know what we do? Put them on Read 180. Come on, y'all. And I'm not even sure we're looking at the data Read 180. So I'm going to ask this of you when we go back. What do we know about our students, especially the ones that you may be in tier 3 or tier 2? And I'm going to say this, and if we can use this as a premise, the answer to tier 1 is not tier 2. Is everybody with me on this one? The answer to tier 1 is not tier 2. It's fixing tier 1. Is everybody with me on this one? It's fixing tier 1. Because right now, what we're doing, we're not even fixing tier 1. We're jumping to tier 2. What are the tier 2 strategies? I'm just like, let's talk about planning tier 1, if you will. Part of doing and engaging in social justice work is we got to be honest that maybe tier 1 isn't expert enough, and fix that. So everybody with me here? Everybody? All right. Anybody heard this before? Seen this? And basically, it was the power of a teacher. But for today, I'm going to say the power of an educator. I've come to the frightened conclusion. I'm the decisive element at my school. I'm the personal approach that creates the climate. It is the daily mood that makes the weather. As an educator, I possess tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate, humor, hurt, or heal. In all situations, it's my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated. A child humanized or dehumanized. We control the weather from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. An instrument of inspiration or a tool of torture. Think about the kids that we are, and I'm going to say we're not saving babies. We got to equip babies to save themselves. We shouldn't be in the saving business. We should be in the equipping business. How do we equip our babies to save themselves, if you will? Our learning outcomes for today. We're going to engage. What I'll do, just part of the operation of the packets, I'll be going back and forth in the PowerPoint as well as the packet. I believe the packet is numbered. Do we have numbers on the packet? The thick one? I was not being green this week. I'm sorry. So we'll go back and forth in the packet, if you will. And you have the PowerPoint as well if you want to take notes. All right. I'm going to ask us to redefine equity. All right? Because right now, everything is equity. We got equity this, equity that, and the needle hasn't moved. Is it because we haven't operationalized it? So we're going to talk about how do we operationalize it. We're going to look at disaggregated data. And I know we're not going to spend a lot of time on the data piece, but if we are not using data, we cannot state the case for equity. Okay, so there's a piece of data that we're going to show countywide that will engage in a kind of a 5Y protocol. Anybody been through a 5Y protocol? Okay, that's some good stuff to get at it. However, this is what I'm finding in the improvement science work. When we get to the why, when it gets down to teacher biases, we go back up to say it's not that. Somebody with me on this one? As soon as we get to the worms, we put the rock back. Because a lot of the work, and even in this preschool, and I'll share with you, we're going to spend billions of dollars in preschool. I know somebody in here is preschool something, right? Where's my preschool? I knew one person. We're about to give you a boatload of money. It's coming, right? And it's interesting that the research out of Harvard, it's Yale, says that African American boys are 4 times to be suspended in preschool than any other students. And we got to ask the question why. And that study is out because we're going to be given a lot. When we have a lot of money in preschool, we're going to have a lot of teachers in preschool. And I'm going to say if their professional development and our K-12 professional development doesn't engage in anti-bias work, anti-racist work, what's going to happen? we're still going to have disproportionality. Is everybody with me? Regardless of PBIS, regardless of SEL, regardless what another acronym they got. So, regardless of that, if it doesn't engage in the worm work, that's the worm work. Because when we do the 5 whys and we look at disaggregated data, I don't want our white teachers to say, you're saying this because I'm white? We as leaders have to be able to navigate that conversation because the data is asking us to ask another question. So we're going to engage in that. We're going to look at sustaining practices. This is a grounded research through Paris who really just did an offshoot of culturally relevant. And we're going to talk about some of the key points to that. We're going to take a look at MTSS with an equity lens. Okay, with an equity lens, and there are some strategies in there that we're going to engage in. And for about 30 minutes toward the end, we're going to do some planning. Okay, some site planning, right? Only in a math problem you can buy 60 cantaloupes and no one asks, what the hell is wrong with you? Some of the things that we give our kids don't make sense. So when it doesn't make sense and it doesn't have any connection to their reality, you don't get kids being resilient to go through that. This doesn't make sense to kids. And some of the work that we're asking our kids to do doesn't make sense. If we ask the babies, and we're going to listen to some student voice, if we ask the babies, they'll tell us where it hurts. The courageous piece is, are we going to do anything after they tell us? So we're going to listen to some Black and brown students talk about their experience, and I'm going to ask you, so what would we do if these were your kids? Okay? All right. What I want you to do right now at your table, I want you to answer, starting with the youngest person. What is the root cause to academic behavior challenges for students of color in school? Starting with the youngest person, and we'll go around to that person's left. I just want you to engage. You don't have to be right. You just have to jump in. Okay? Root cause. Let's have a conversation. Okay, here we go. Let's rock and roll. The folks who I've given pins to, if you can stand up. I want you to find somewhere on the wall and just write down 1 or 2 things you heard as a root cause up on the wall. Yeah, from the group. You can pass it. There's 2 slides. You got front and back. Yeah. Yeah. 30 seconds, y'all. Is it Abby? Okay. As you put the last little touches, please. Abby, just quickly, if you could just share. So you're saying the system is set up for certain kids to succeed? Whoa. Is that, wait a minute, let me ask this question. If that was the only data that we have, how would your LCAP change? If that was the only data that you had on that gauge that was red, that the system is set up for certain kids to succeed, how would your LCAP change? Interesting. You know why? Because we're not looking at the system to change. We're trying to change the babies. And then we put them back into a system that was set up for them not to succeed. We're going to talk about that today, y'all. We're going to talk about that. Actually, that's the elephant in the room. That's the elephant in the room. It's not even 10 o'clock. You talking about race. I was going to at least wait till 11:30. Lord have mercy. And that's an issue. And we're going to just talk about who's getting the goodies and who's not. Because there's some goodies. School gives you goodies. If you are an AP calculus, you're getting some goodies at school. If the master schedule can tell you who's getting the goodies, any secondary folks here? That master schedule can say, you know, those band kids, they're getting some goodies. It'd be interesting who's in the band. Start out that ask. Let's go here. Yeah, that deficit thinking, that's huge, huge. Let's go to next. What does that mean? Miss G, you expert, you. The last one. Yeah. When we talk about Shoki Holly's work, a lot of Gloria Lanson Billings' work, Geneva Gay, some teacher says, you know, we don't want to lower the standards. We haven't talked about standards. We make some assumptions. I make an assumption as an equity warrior, if you're giving kids access to their wheelhouse of how they learn and make meaning, that is high rigorous learning. But the biases that we have in school is this. We don't want to lower the standards. We don't have time to teach that. This is actually accessing standards. It's not teaching it. You're just accessing how kids learn. And that is through the curriculum and developing schema. Absolutely. 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 But getting our teachers to understand that reading Why Cageburg Sing is just as important as Huck Finn. Is everybody with me on this one? Which I don't understand why we still teach that book anyway. That gives the school 6 weeks of saying the N-word, and that's disempowering text for possibly an African-American student. But that's still part of our classics. Any high school folks here? That's still part of our classics, regardless if we know it's disempowering for certain people. Mm-hmm. Give me an example of a Eurocentric middle class norm. Another middle class norm is sitting for a long period of time in school. To raise your hand before you speak to me. Even when I ask an open-ended question, the teacher really wants certain kids to raise their hand. Is everybody with me on this one? And if I'm a young African American or Latino student who believes in the oral tradition of just jumping in, which is a strategy, is jumping in the conversation, if you will, I'm going to be in clash with the teacher's norm, if you will. And that's how I get part of the 3Ds in school. Everybody know the 3Ds in school, right? Defiance, disturbance, and disrespect. Those K violations that get kids kicked out of school. All right? But that's a middle class norm. And I'm going to tell you, in certain cultures, if I jump in your story, that's a sign of respect. That means I'm affirming you that I can finish your story. That's a sign of respect. But if a kid jumped in on a teacher's lecture, oh no. You sit there and wait. You can see how that clash happens just because, yeah. 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 Yeah, that is true. And we're going to talk about some of those tales of the tape in school. Because if school, we need schools to be more culturally in sync with students. Right now, there's a lot of cultural incongruency, as Lisa Delpa talks about other people's children. There's a lot of cultural incongruency that's taking place. And how do we, in our PBIS, in our SEL, in our restorative practice, add a little bit of Lowry's Tahim to that? Because right now we're not. PBIS is not closing the disproportionality gap. It's how do I say that? The data shows that discipline is going down, but it's not closing the gap. Interesting, interesting. Wow, even today. With all the stuff that we know, it's still one size fits all. Mm. Yeah, yeah. And I'm a firm believer of the gap is just not with kids of color. It could be rigor because not a lot of folks are bumping it against excellence anyway. So part of equity is how do we continue to bump up against excellence? And I share this with school board members. Equity is about your kids too. They're not bumping up against excellence. We got a lot of kids who are leaving here with 4.3s and still taking intervention classes at San Jose State and Berkeley and Stanford. Who are we equipping, if you will? Yeah. Home expectation is real critical. As your guys are going back to your city, I want you to do some reflection for me. To what extent is your school site plan and or LCAP has these elements that if I was going to taste your soup, I would see actions that will address this? Because I'm going to tell you in California, the red is around Black and brown kids, correct? So to what extent does your school site plan or your LCAP, if I was gonna taste that soup, I would taste this? Or would I have to be like, ooh, it's kind of in there. But I meant this. Please go back to your seats. You can pass out. You can pass out the data. Did you did? Okay. At your okay, great. At your table, you should have some data there. But before we look at the data, let me just model some stuff for you so you'll see what you're doing. And then we're going to engage. Before we engage in the equity work, we got to state the case. All right, we got to state the case. I want you to just look here first, and that's the data that's on your desk. Okay, this is Santa Clara County's CASP data for students who scored 3 and 4 by non-socioeconomics and socioeconomic disadvantage. Sometimes we don't splice the data this way. All right. Sometimes we're always looking at who didn't make it. We're going to give a different look at the data. So what you're seeing right now is obviously African American, Latino, white, Asian, the percent of students who scored a 3 or a 4 on the CAS. Affluent, non-affluent. So we're splicing the onion very differently now, okay? So I want you to just take a look at it. I'm gonna shut up because that's what you should do when you do data analysis, you're facilitating. Give it to them and let them grapple with it. All right, take a look at it and then start having a conversation real quick. What jumps out at you? Okay, come on back to me, good people. Tony, what'd you guys talk about at your table, T? SES matters. Could everyone, based on this data, SES matters. Yes, keep going. Okay, Olivia, what you guys talk about? Okay, Arturo, talk to me. What stood out for you? Okay. 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 Well, thank you very much for your voice, though. Rosina, what stood out for you in this one? Okay. Kim? Mm. Mm. This is all of the county schools. So you guys are in here. We didn't know who was gonna be in the thing, so we didn't want to pull just your data. So we just put everything in there because how do I say it? We do data protocols, but I'm not sure to what extent we slice it like this. Because these are the kids who are presumably going on to state schools and universities, and the percentage of who are not. Is everybody with me on this one? Sometimes we just say this, but I want you to look at the variance between the ethnic groups. What do you notice in the variance of the ethnic groups? Within the ethnic groups. Look at the variance. I want you to take a look first, and then, because this is where we don't go. Okay, we're gonna have the other group. We're gonna get to you guys in 1 second. I want you guys to look at, because I'm not sure we looked at that. I know this table, fabulous table 3 did. Do you see anything that jumps out at you? Let's start here at 3 because 3 was extremely excited to share. Interesting. Not that far behind. So are you telling me poor whites and poor Asian kids in the county here score at the same level as affluent Black and brown kids in Santa Clara County? Whoa. What kind of questions does that raise for you now? What would be a question that raises for you now? I'm going to give you another one. This gap, look at this gap and this gap. And it's more pronounced in math. If you look at the math data, because we're going to engage. Look at the variance in math. I could be in Los Gatos, San Mateo, Alamitos de las Pogas, right? Guado, Aragon High School. I could be here, and I also can be at the Popular Apartments. Y'all don't know the area. He's from San Mateo, so I'm just. I could be Los Gatos, and I could be, I don't want to use, on the east side. Let's just use that as a demographic, whatever, right? In mathematics, it's not gonna matter as much. Have a conversation at your table. Why do you think so? Okay, let's rock and roll. I'm sorry. This day is gonna go real fast. Sorry about that. This day is gonna go real fast. Table 4, the youngest person, what did you guys talk about? They're making me do Donahue. I'm sorry. It's the technology.
So as we were looking at the data, we were curious as to why systematically within our math scores, there wasn't much of a difference. It was regardless of their socioeconomic status, they were still unable to access the math level as our white and Asian populations. And so to me or to our table, we are looking at this not so much as an economic factor as a cultural factor, and thinking of the factors that, and then we discussed the fact that linguistically there could be disadvantages in the way our, especially our upper grade math teachers are teaching, and we're looking a lot at the fact, and we discussed some more regarding our.
Okay. Let's go here, preschooler.
We kind of talked more about experience here at the table. So Sung was share his experience as
Outside voice.
sorry. Sung was share his experience with us regarding how he went through school and his cultural background. So the expectations of sitting in the classroom and respecting the teacher, and no matter, even if you weren't understanding what was happening, the expectations were always. Is that, am I putting words into your mouth? Because he was telling us the story.
So, I have Korean heritage, and I grew up in Korea, and so we there is a misalignment in the expectations. I mean, we talk about the dominant culture, and what is this system designed for? Even though it's not designed necessarily for the Asian culture, the the expectations that we grow up in fit better into the box that the system is designed for, because at the earliest ages we learn very quickly, we are not going to speak back to elders, and we are expected to sit, and we can do that very well. So even though I might not necessarily be engaged with what's going on in school, it seems like, wow, you're a great student. You are sitting and you are following the rules and so forth. And also, talking about expectations, we are a society, a Confucian society based on test taking. If you go back hundreds of years of you take tests, and when you have a culture based on that, you have expectations of you learn to sit, you learn to answer multiple choice questions well, and there are some values in culture that fit very well into a system that's not necessarily designed for Asians, but you seem to do well. And I can say, like, I did very well on standardized tests, and I went to Stanford, but I realized very quickly I wasn't necessarily an expert learner. I was just really good at fitting into one box.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to add on to this on a side note. I also feel like the expectation is different for that and you're set up better. I'm Indian and I was always expected in AP classes and I was given that opportunity. I feel like there's more opportunity for Indians than Asians out there. And actually they placed me in an AP math class and I actually have a learning disability in math. But I was put there because I was the only brown kid and I was expected to go in there.
So the system is wrapping the arms around folks, regardless if they have to demonstrate expertise.
Yeah, you're expected as a brown person to know math. I mean, right? So
I'm going to say,
right.
Yeah.
My brown people, engineering and math, right?
I'm going to say this. We're going to have great conversations today. And Anthony Muhammad says this: information without transformation. You know, information does not mean we're going to go back and transform our school. It's going to be courage. If you can't go back to the Ponderosa and have some honest conversation, you just spend a great time listening to a guy with a weird outfit on. All right? You're going to have to go back and say, you know what? Let's spice the onion differently. Is our LCAP really telling the right story? Because we have a tendency to spend a lot of money on the wrong thing. Is everybody with me on this one? We have a tendency to do that, if you will. This is interesting data. Thumbs up if your district or your school has spliced the data this way. By the top kids, socioeconomics and so, right? Everybody stand up. In your packet, if we're really going to solve this problem, y'all, research out of UCLA says we only use 10% of the research that we know work. So the 90% of the stuff that we know work, we just don't do. If we will. But we want to close the gap really fast. You got to close the gap by doing the stuff. We got to take care of the worms. In your packet, there is on page 4. And this is going to be kind of our working structured potty break. Okay? Since I want us to do a 5 why based on the math data. So that's the 5 why. I just want you to get used to doing a 5 why protocol of now, since we have identified the worms, why do we think so? In the 5 why protocol, and I think there's a template. Okay, so I want the group to come up with a problem statement. Okay, so based on this data, you're going to come up with a problem statement. What is the problem here? And you guys have to identify what the problem is. And then what you're going to do is kind of engage the 5 why. The 5 why. I gave you a sample on page 7, not based on this data, but I gave you a sample of what that looks like so you can have a model, if you will. All right. So the 5 why is you're going to identify a problem statement. Problem statement could be, why is there less of a variance between African American and Latino students as opposed to white and Asian? That could be a problem statement. Then you're going to identify 5 whys. And then when you get to a point of 5 whys where it's not actionable, stop. Is everybody with me on this one? This is a protocol of digging deeper into the data. Okay? Let's do this. Fist to 5. 5 if you kind of really understand what we're going to be doing for the next 15, 20 minutes. 4 is like, yeah, I'm good with it. I can. 3 is like, you know, I may need a 504. No, just kidding. 2 is like, man, are you crazy? 1, you guys know it. So can I get a fist to 5? You know, I just did my formative assessment. I didn't need dibbles. Is everybody with me on this one? All right, let's start. We'll start the train. We'll have a structured potty break for 10 minutes, and then if we can get back to the tables, if you will, and start working it out. Are you really looking at it through the racial lens? Even, and I'm going to say this to you, even if my school is 90% Latino, this is what we're finding. Darker skinned Latino boys are getting in trouble. I would want you to do an equity walk and find out the skin color of the kids in your special ed. You'll be interesting to find something out. And when we talk about white privilege, unpacking the invisible knapsack and the whole idea of whiteness, that's an issue that we need to go to in our Latino community or Black community, white community, Asian community. Lighter skin means something. And that's a form of privilege even within our own cultural groups, if you will. So when people say, oh, we're all Latino. Yeah, splice the onion a little bit more. Is everybody with me on this one? Just splice it. If we're gonna get to the crux of it, because we're doing a lot of differentiated assistance. We're doing a lot of 5 whys. We're doing a lot of process maps. We're even doing fishbone. Isn't that the thing? But we're stopping. We're stopping at a very surface level. We're stopping at a very surface level. So what we're going to do just for about 10 to 15 minutes, and I know you guys, because we got the gifted and talented in the room as well as on Zoom, all right, is I just gave you the 5 whys. This is something that I just did as a model, but I want us to go back to the math data. Okay, and as we go through the 5 whys, and I just use disproportionality. I looked at it, I used disproportionality, and then I just start asking, why do I think so? So the first why for me, it was lack of student engagement. And then I said, why is that? Maybe because the teacher doesn't have maybe the planning isn't engaging. Why is that? There's no relationship possibly with the kids. So if I don't like them, how am I gonna really plan for them? You typically don't plan for folks you don't like. Well, you do plan, you plan to avoid them, all right? And then we just went down here and then down here, and then we just gave, what is our action? Okay, what would be our action? So what I'm gonna have you do right now, just at your table, let's just look at the math data. And I think that's the yellow and the red, yellow and red. And let's come up with one problem statement. Let's not do paralysis by analysis. Choose an area, and then let's go into the 5 whys. And then you have the template on the subsequent page, okay, that you can just write in. I just want us to get used to going through the action, okay? And let's try to find some worms. The goal is to find worms, okay? And then we're gonna go ahead and figure out how we're gonna clean them up. All right, let's rock and roll, y'all. Okay, here we go. Come on back to me, y'all. I have like 6 hours worth of curriculum to give you in a couple of hours, so I'm gonna give you a drink with a fire hose. All right, let's just talk about the process. Anybody have any reflection just on the process of going through? Table 1, you with me? Table 1? You guys with me? We're with, okay. So let's just talk about the process of having to go down, because we have a tendency to do solution without really understanding the problem. We need our LCAP in when? March. Is everybody with me? Anybody's done the LCAP? Let's go ahead and get a couple of parents. They don't know kind of what's going on, but we'll put them there and we'll go through some stuff. Here, you sign this, and we'll go through some actions because we want to spend our money. Because the goal was, I need to spend my money. As opposed to saying, you know what? This has been read for 4 years. And before we even had read, it was a far below basic. Is everybody with me here? But we keep doing the same thing for Latino boys in discipline who happen to be special ed. That's the growing number of reds in the state of California. And we keep doing what? Hey, we'll put them on Chromebooks. Because that's where we got to spend our money. Because I got a lot of money on EL, so Chromebooks cost about $1,000. I can get rid of my money. I'm not here to validate ineffective practices. That's real talk. That's the reality of the system that you guys said you wanted to change in your action. Any thoughts of the process? How is this process different than the process you did last year for your LCAP? So let's be honest, y'all. We got people watching. No, just kidding. Yee, what are you thinking about the process here?
So through the 5 whys root cause analysis, we keep on asking the reason why, and it just pushes us to reflect at a deeper level and our own awareness, and even to see the different, open up to hear the different experiences, like different members of the table experience, and even our childhood experience, how we are growing up, and it shapes, some beliefs and our experiences. So it's a deeper reflection.
Okay, deeper reflection. Yeah.
So something small but very impactful from doing LPAC at a district. All of these different people and different sites worked on their part of the LPAC separately. LPAC, LCAP, EL person, can you tell? But then we get here, it's collaborative.
Here's the interesting part to what just took place. We did it in 15 minutes. It doesn't take you 6 months to do a root cause analysis, y'all, if you don't sit around and pontificate all day. Because the goal is to solve a problem, right? We have a tendency to not believe that the problem is the problem. And so happened, I was kind of a taskmaster too. So when you're doing an LCAP, who is facilitating getting to the solution? Or do we have all South people? Anybody know the little compass thing? The South people? That means everybody's voice got to be heard in kumbaya. Who's the North? Who's the North and who's the West? Who's going to go detail and get through it, if you will? So as you start to look at your LCAP and organizing that, you got to have North, South, East, West folks to get to. Does that make sense, that compass? What you guys talk about? What was your thinking, Linda, about the process?
What I like about the 5 whys is it causes you to focus on the problem and keep digging down and down on the problem, because we want to just leap to the solution, right? And say, okay, we get it. This is what we're going to do to fix it. But if we don't keep asking the whys and getting to the underlying causes, which are not very pleasant a lot of times, then anything that we propose as a solution isn't really based in fact. It's based on supposition.
In 1.5 minutes, I want you to give me your problem statements, your 5 whys, and your actions. Go.
Okay, our problem was all Latino and African American students in our data set are scoring lower than socioeconomically disadvantaged white students. Our first why was the intended and taught curriculum, and those things are different, don't meet the needs of those learners. Our next why was because it is potentially a racially biased curriculum, meaning that the designers and the facilitators of that curriculum have a bias towards their own culture and maintaining the status quo. Why are they maintaining the status quo? Because it's easy, it's comfortable, it maintains power. I'm gonna go white power before lunch, is that okay?
They're gonna do power too over here.
So. Okay, and then it's an investment in maintaining those status quo norms. The why for that was white people don't want to give up power. I know we've gone a long way from math, but here we are. And then the final why was fear. So we decided that our worm was fear. Do you want the action?
Please.
Okay, so the action was to educate the educators by some reading, and we started a list for fun over here. Some guided conversations, and conversations about this work have to be facilitated. They can't just be free range. And then eventually culminating in an action plan that's public and that shows where your dollars are dedicated to equity.
Ooh, you go, girl. Good job, table 5. Let's go. 5 whys, real quick.
Okay, I guess it's me. Our problem statement is we don't talk about race in class, as in the classroom. Why? Because we're afraid.
And you use this data to make that problem
Yes.
statement. Okay.
Yes. Why? Because we'll have to look at it through a critical lens. Why? Because we have to have difficult conversations. We got through that and started just talking and realized that is our action, that we are going to have difficult conversations regarding race and cultural bias.
If you get to a place that you can action, you don't have to do the 5. You can stop and start to say, okay, what is our action? So
So our problem is less than 50% of our African American and Latino students in grades 3 to 11 are scoring 3 or 4 in math, regardless of SES. Our first why is lack of access to rigorous math instruction. Why? Lack of effective instructional practices. Why? Low teacher expectation. Why? Misaligned assumptions of students and learning. And our last why is unconscious and conscious bias.
So what's your action?
To create a set of PDs that would incorporate culture in math instruction, really highlighting the equity lens in having those conversations and all those trainings.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say this as the equity guy, so to speak, is this can't be a drive-by PD. Just like your ELD is not drive-by. Is everybody with me on this one? So when you say, hey, we're going to do the equity PD, don't just go get Glenn for one day and thinking that you're doing something. That has to be embedded in everything that you do, from your PLCs to your faculty meetings to your ELD, if you will, because you can't take race out of culture, if you will, especially if you're trying to do cultural sustaining practices, if you will. So when you say we're going to do equity PD, it's just not at the beginning of the school year on an SPC day and say, let's herd everybody in the cafeteria. Come on, y'all. We know that doesn't work. But we continue to do it. And I don't understand why. Someone said fear. Fear. We got to really, and to combat fear, you just got to have courage. And if your leader's not on board, it's a wrap. It's not going to happen. So as we go back to the Ponderosa, one thing we're going to learn some strategies, but could you imagine bringing what you guys just shared back to a school? You guys will get ran out of the building. Is everybody with me on this one? You get ran out of the building. So we're going to have to cultivate the land so we won't get run out of the building, because that's where we got to go. If we don't cultivate the land, it's like planting on hardpan. Anybody know what hardpan is? It's that dirt in Fresno, right? It's real hard, and it's like clay. And then when you plant on hardpan, if you haven't tilled the land, the first rain, the seed washes away. That's what equity work in Santa Clara County has been doing, planting on hardpan. I know, I've been a part of it. We haven't tilled the land yet, and I'm glad that we're doing this work, because that's tilling the land. Does that make sense?
All right, our problem statement was regardless of social economic status or location in Santa Clara County, our African Americans are achieving lower in math. So lower expectations of our African American students is a cause, having the system bias, lacking the cultural and historical biases, which the system filters out, and since they're not built for other cultures, having the power of the upper white class. And then our actionable step is recruiting and opening up the table for people of color to enter the conversations via PLCs, and also having opportunities for higher positions for people of color to be in.
Okay. You guys are cooking with fish grease.
Ours was very similar. So our problem statement
Outside
was
voice.
the small gap for the African American students from communities. Our why was first why was we were quick to track, which second why was expectations and norms. Third why was the school-wide expectations versus individualized expectations. Fourth why was pedagogy aligned to historical dominant average norms, and then which leads to like aligned to like the middle class American, which then okay, and then the sustaining our problem state our solution was sustaining cultures in a classroom at a young age and teaching to their strengths at a young age.
Okay. Okay. We went to the pedagogical place. That's great. I'm going to ask this of us, and I don't know any district in differentiated assistance that's here. Okay. Sorry about that. Or you have red on your LCAP. Anybody got red on their LCAP on the dashboard? I know. So here we go. My question is, are we doing this level of specificity in our differentiated assistance to get to the why, or we already have the solution reflected? And I'm going to challenge my county office folks. You guys approve this stuff. Send it back if it's not addressing the world. Sorry for saying that, because sometimes we're a little soft on this work. We get an LCAP, he's like, okay, you turn it in and we prove it, and we know it's not going to solve nothing. We have to be courageous enough at the mothership to say, you know what, that's your first work, that's not your best work. Is everybody with me on this one? Because that's a vertical slice. Because if the system is not courageous, schools are not going to be courageous, districts are not going to be courageous, schools are not going to be courageous, if you will. Because if we're really going to solve this, stop playing. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. I'm going to show you, we're going to move from the data, which sets us up for the equity, okay? But I want to leave us with a working lunch. We're going to have a working lunch, and I don't know really what that means. Kathy will tell us. But the food's here, so whatever. We're going to have a working lunch. I want you to just relax, and I want us to have a lunch conversation of solving this problem. Okay, I'm going to show you a video. Okay, I'm going to show you a video. And how would we go around solving this problem? They won't be able to see it. If I can find it.
my teacher told me she would bump it up to an A because I worked hard and I was the only black. I wanted to take AP Bio, and so after class, that teacher came up to me and put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Are you an honor student? Because if you're not, you find a way towards this." I was one of the very few students of color in a classroom signing up for an AP exam. The teacher kneeled next to me and so that if I was on welfare, I could get a free waiver. First, the black walked into the room and asked the teacher if she was in our class. She was at the schedule. She said, "We don't look like there was a tradition called Redefine, and when I advocated for myself, saying it was cultural appropriation, and it made me uncomfortable because of the sexualization and assumptions about foreign culture, I was met with a lot of resistance because it was a tradition. I was in my EDEquity class, and I heard one of the students call another student a queen. My French teacher to talk about how Asian families act in a certain way and African families act in a certain way. And then anytime any student of color would come in late, she would say that you are. So one day I left my phone going to class to get it. She said, "What are you doing in here?" I said, "I'm going to get my phone." She called me outside. She said, "Hey, what did you steal?" I was immediately kicked out of the class by a teacher, and she called me a fucking yeah. So I did report them. Like nothing happened with this, and after this video, I'm not even kidding. I told everyone this. I told my office. I told my team. I'm done. Like I'm not being a teacher. I'm not doing social justice anymore because I put in my work for this, and I really tried to do this, and nothing happened. So this is it. This ends. Like when nothing happens, like okay, that's great. You win.
Data. This data is just as important as that data. Actually, that data possibly causes this data, if you will. And things that we do at the school, because we're stating the case to improve systems, if you will. But we still got to keep the babies in mind. They're hurting in our schools. So the compelling why, as Simon Sinek talks about the why, it's not test scores. It's equipping our babies to have a positive experience in a system that you guys said was not intended for them. Got work to do. So what I want you to do, just a reflection as you're eating, and I hope it doesn't kill your food. But just a reflection on the video on how do we not save babies but equip babies, but more importantly, how do we act on the data that they're giving us? Let's go have lunch, y'all. We'll start to train at 12:30. Great intro. Thank you very much, Kathy. No, just kidding. I'm glad you guys came back. Just to put a little loose ends to the video, I think that's a very powerful video. It's on YouTube, so if you want it, I can give you a copy of it. It's just a very powerful video of just kids talking. And I think part of the work in school improvement, it's got to be around what do the babies say? Because I'm going to tell you one thing, they'll tell you where it hurts. We're kind of guessing a little bit where it hurts, but they'll tell you where it hurts, if you will, if we have the courage to ask. Anybody had any thoughts around the video? Just anything? Yeah, Olivia. And that could be my best friend, right? The kids could be talking about my best friend. You know, we go take tequila shots on Friday. No, just kidding. That's my best. She would never do that to you. And then that's how we erode relationships with certain kids. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you know who the justice police are in your schools? Black and brown kids. Because they understand injustices because they experience it more. So those are the kids that will go like this. You know, 6 months ago, you let her go to the bathroom and you didn't let me go to the bathroom. They keep tally on things. And then that's part of caring for them. is that you become fair and consistent with the work. Anything else? Any reflection? Yeah.
So the video ends with the young woman talking about how she tried to leverage support for her, what she saw as an injustice, and that it seemed like nobody was listening. So I think that that happens a lot with young people. And another very powerful place to leverage are the young people themselves in figuring out how to make changes to the place that they are supposed to spend the majority of their day in.
Yeah. And do we allow them? Could I make changes at a high school if I'm not in the leadership class? Because those are the kids who make the changes. And if I went to Los Gatos, I would have probably a pretty good figure who's in the leadership class. Everybody with me? So as we start, and we're going to get into the equity because we're going to talk about some realities around this. But the framework that we use is, and I'm going to just share this with you, 75% we believe closing the racial achievement gap is mindset. 25% strategies. Now, most people come to PD to do what? Get some strategies. So we're going to give you some strategies, but the morning session was really around our mindset around some things, if you will. The stuff that you have up here is really not around strategies. It's around mindset, if you will. And as we look at awareness, attitudes, and analysis, what I'm doing, I'm just driving you to the first page of the packet if you need to go there. And one of the analyses that we're going to engage in today is the action of culturally sustaining practices and the action of culturally sustaining practices and analysis. What does it mean to understand racial identity develop in our students and in us as practitioners? What does it mean to be white at a brown school as a teacher? What does it mean to be the only Latina at a white staff at a brown school? Those are things that are important, and the identity development of our kids is one of the foundational pieces of teaching culture. You're basically saying we honor what you bring to the schoolhouse, and we are going to align our planning and our practices on your cultural and linguistic experiences. That's tough, especially if you don't know the babies. If you don't know them, you're gonna teach from your own cultural filters. Schools are culturally relevant. They are. And yeah, please. For certain students. And an intended outcome, the school does work. Absolutely. It is. So what we're asking us to do is to dismantle something that we benefit from. That's why it's hard work. Because everybody in this room benefited from education, from their own experience that we benefited from. And you're saying that I got to go dismantle it? That's a challenge. Look familiar? This is so 1980s or something, whatever. Right? And what we had, and that was the picture that came out, and that was the foundational thing of equity. But I'm going to tell you, it didn't move the needle in education. It didn't move the needle. And we basically said, if you had to define, if you had to do a definition based on this picture, what would be your definition? That was participatory in nature. What would be your definition if you had to just make a definition out of this pictorial? Table 2, the youngest person. Okay, we're building supports to be equal. Jim. Okay, so we're providing more support if everyone's going to gain access. Kim. Okay. Lorraine. Okay. So we need supports and providing supports. And I'm sure you guys have seen this picture. Right? The reality of school is really the reality of school. Who gets, think of singletons. What I mean by singletons is in the master schedule, the class that maybe have one section, right? That's where you start building the master schedule. Everything else surrounds itself around this one class. And take a guess where the interventions are. After school, if we have any. Secondary. Is everybody with me on this one? Because secondaries are still struggling with interventions during the school day. Take a guess who may have to go home and take care of somebody. I'm gonna give them 0 period because they gotta do band. Is everybody with me here? That's the reality of school, if you will. I'm gonna ask us to think of this, and this is our table conversation, all right? I want you to build a definition off of this pictorial. At your table, I want you to take a look at it, I want you to analyze it, all right? I want you to kind of take a look at it, and at your table, I want you to come up with a working definition based on this pictorial. Some of you guys have seen this, some of you guys haven't. Let's have a conversation at your table. I'm going to ask this of you guys because you guys are the equity boards, probably at your district, or your sphere of influence. The first step of doing equity work is defining an operationalized definition and holding yourself accountable to doing what your definition says. Because one thing we do, we have equity all over the place in the district. It's on every collateral piece. And then we ask people, how do you operationalize that? They just said, we do this. Okay, so think about your system and how might you operationalize the definition that you guys collectively put together. So my blue group over here, if you can just recite what you guys said. Blue group. Yes.
It says empower students and staff to dismantle the barriers to create an environment that is accessible for all.
Ooh, we're dismantling stuff. We're empowering. Green group. So we got some empowerment. We equipping the babies. Think about schools and what would you have to do differently if that was your definition? That means I would be giving kids access. And the acts could be what? Language. The acts could be computation skills. The acts could be vocabulary development. Is everybody with me when I'm talking about the acts, if you will? All right. Orange group. Ooh, the babies know how to tear this thing down. If you get rid of teacher in room 26, she flunked my brother, my cousin, my mama. She don't even like us. And we know that there's some folks in room 26 that should have retired a long time ago. And I'm gonna say to my leaders in the room, retirement is not a leadership strategy. They typically stay, if you will. Mm. Hey, you can put that on the t-shirt. Okay, what's the difference from this pictorial that you guys have on your definition and this pictorial? What's the number one difference that you see in your definition? Because you guys gave me the definition earlier. What's the difference between, what's the shift? We'll say the shift from this one to this one. You have it up on the wall. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? This one, you guys all said, we're going to provide. We're going to provide the baby. We're going to give them the fish. This one right here, we're going to equip them with the tools to fish. My question is, how are we equipping our babies? If we're going to do equity, we have to equip our babies to eradicate the barriers that are before them, because they're going to see multiple barriers in their lives even after K-12. So how are we equipping them? We got to equip them with language, y'all. When kids know how to use language, that is their axe. So if they're using language, they're probably writing pretty decent. They know how to navigate. So this whole idea of literacy instruction, I'm going to say right now, is the axe to tearing down any barrier. As soon as I learned academic language and still was okay being an urban Black kid, I was fine. But if I stayed only in my community and talked the way the Black dialect, I was not going to gain access to seeing the game. I had to know the duality between the two and when to use it and when not to use it, how to be safe in my neighborhood and how to be safe at school. Because the way I use my language at school gave people a perception of who I was or who they think I will be. Yeah, I love you.
Is to deny them access to education, especially the ability to read and language. And I think that one thing that might be a barrier for adults is that when you stop oppressing children and you give them access to this, they're going to question authority. And I don't know if people are ready to deal with that.
And that's teed us up very well, because one of the foundations of culturally sustained practice is that they need to question this stuff they're going through. So if you teach me how to think and value what I'm thinking, I'm going to question, why have you oppressed me and held this thing called education hostage from me? We got to be ready to hear that. And sometimes that's why we don't give it to them, because they're going to question these policies and practices. Anybody heard of James Banks? James Banks talks about the multiple levels of multiculturalism, right? From celebratory to social action. And the top level of multiculturalism is actually giving the kids the voice to be civil disobedient in school. Remember the Garfield kids down in East LA? That was true multiculturalism. Some of the kids who walked out, we should be promoting that. Whoa. If you don't like it, tell us. And if we don't give it to you, just like this young lady in the video says, I'm tired of talking to y'all. I'm tired of talking to y'all. Y'all ain't doing that. Is everybody with me on this one? Could you imagine equipping kids with language so they can question you? That's real equity. That's justice. So when we talk about social justice, because that's the new buzzword, social justice, what we're saying is whatever is happening right now, there's injustices. So how do I, at your table, have this discussion? Starting with the person to the right of the youngest. Who's more equipped to change? Table one. You guys ready to rock and roll? Who's to the right of the youngest? All right. Which one's more equipped to change?
Okay, we decided it was the group of Latino students
Why did you guys decide that?
because institutions have past traditions and unspoken biases that keep things from changing quickly.
Okay.
And that the students, Latino students, are passionate.
All right. Table two, most seasoned.
I think we had the same conversation. We said the students absolutely have the passion and the drive to make the change happen, but who holds the power to make the change currently is the institution.
So you're sitting on the fence. No, just kidding.
No.
You're saying this institution. Ooh, they're saying the institution is more equipped. Table three.
So we also said the Latin students would have were more equipped to change, but we talked about the institution of school, the way they're set up. They are primarily, the staffs are primarily white with the power. So it's not only that they have, why should they? The idea you'd have to convince them to change and give up their power. And that, when we talked about the fear of that, it's just a harder job to do, to get them, convince them that they should be changing. Right now, they don't have to. It's working for them.
Even if the data says that we're killing kids on the vine, kids dying doesn't really matter. I just don't want to get my feelings hurt. I don't care if Jesus can read, as long as I get my $100,000. Is that what we're saying as an institution? We you know, Jesus is just a casualty of war. Oh, there you go. This is the way we roll. It's been working for us. Ooh, I'm glad y'all gonna have some good conversations on Tuesday.
So we said that the students are more equipped to change, and we said that they live in a society which forces them to mask who they are constantly, and to navigate systems they have to take on some sort of different persona in a sense and follow unwritten rules. And also just America in general is becoming less white and the population is shifting, and so there are also some generational differences in terms of how they see things like race and ethnicity. And we also mentioned like social media and how they've organized themselves.
Absolutely. Demographics are shifting, power structure isn't. We're going to be in an apartheid country in a second. There's a, we, and I don't want to start my CNN stuff. No, just kidding. that is true. And wait a minute, it's playing out in broad daylight. And we can't do, our government, let me stop. Next table. That's another talk show. Sorry about that.
Agreeing with what Olivia said about the group of Latino students already being adaptable and flexible and innovative, having to be in their daily lives, and who stands to benefit from the change, right? So who is equipped to change? They're both equipped to change in some level, but who is motivated and who stands to benefit?
Absolutely. I think the optimum state, the word in this one is equipped, because the institution has BAs, BSs, EDDs, MSs, a whole bunch of acronyms. And we are equipped with the intellect and the knowledge and the education to change. But we're always asking the babies to change. And if they don't change, they won't get access. If they don't talk a certain way in schools, they will not gain access to curriculum. They won't even gain access to the teacher. So if I come to school and says I be going to the store, teacher would be like, ooh, what was that? But from a linguistic structure, that's the way my mama taught. But if I don't make that switch right away, if they don't honor and validate and bridge my language, my home language, I'm not going to gain access. Part of culturally sustaining practice, if we're going to go there, is that you have to value what the kids bring to the schoolhouse relative to their community experiences, their language, their literacy. And we really have to question, do I have to sound white to gain access? Yeah.
And in subgroups,
Yeah. Absolutely. It is helpful, but what we're finding, we had a great conversation around no, it's okay. We had a great conversation around the 5 whys, and some of the things that the dashboard is asking us to look at, we stop at a surface level in terms of its solutions. Its solutions, the dashboard is asking us to look at the red, but the solutions that we have, the red is over here, the solution is going this way, if you will. If we can align the solution to really solve the problem, now we're cooking with grease. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this group even went deeper than that. I wish you were here earlier. We went deeper than just not access. We actually called the elephant the elephant. Right here, Kim. Please.
So my question is that you just before this slide talked about academic language, that we have to provide our students with academic language so that they can access the institutions and the education that they need. But you're also discussing the fact of that we have to embrace their linguistic manners as they are. And so how do you make that bridge? What is that bridge?
The bridge, anybody heard of FAB? Validate, affirm, and bridge. Let me explain. Okay? The Cherokee Holly's work out of Southern California. He talks about, how do you validate my home language? Edwin, I understand what you meant by you be going to the store. Okay, I understand it, and I understand that's probably part of a dialect that you've used in your community. However, I'm going to show you another way of communicating that statement. Here's the other way. So now I'm validating, affirming, and then I'm going to say, I'm going to help you, honey. I'm going to not help you. I'm going to support you in giving it another linguistic way of communicating. And that communication will give you access as well. Because if I lose my home language, I'm not safe in my hood. Is everybody with me on this one? If I start to do just the dominant American English, when I go back to the barbecue, when I go back to the church, when I go back into my neighborhood, I may be viewed very differently. And that's not safe for me. So what I want a teacher to do is says, you know what, honey, I understand what you mean, because I got to validate and honor that. And if that is a community language, I understand it. Here's an additional way of saying that. Is everybody with me on this one? So that's a validate, affirm, and bridge. What we typically do is we try to do the bridge. Come on over here, but we didn't validate and affirm. So what you do, you diss my home language and thinking I need to accept your language, which is school Adore?
Do I really need that? When you look at this document, what it's saying is these kids, regardless of where they live, so you said it, Los Gatos or East San Jose, regardless of what school they go to, they are not performing at the same rate as the other groups. And so I have to say that my kids have the language to access, and they always did. But I would venture to say they fall in this category, and I had to provide tutoring for them to ensure that they could compete.
Absolutely.
So there was something else there other than language.
And something else is up on the wall in our first activity. What did you guys put in your first activity? There's a lot of biases, implicit bias, assumptions. So even if I dress like this, or your kids dress the way they do, and we learn academic, certain kids, because of the way they look, will still not gain access to the top quality education they deserve. And that's a sad state, unfortunately. Because you're an upper class African American student doesn't mean you're automatically going to gain access. And to be honest with you, you almost got to prove you're smart. While some folks, as the young lady here and some talked about, they just made the assumption that they were going to be smart. They didn't have to prove it. And the young lady said, I had a disability in math, and they stuck me in the AP math. Whoa. There are certain African American kids and brown kids who take algebra in 8th grade. Take a guess what schedule they have more often than not in high school. Algebra again. Is everybody with me on this one? So regardless, they just stick on where they think they should be, as opposed to, and that is a perception issue. And that's a lot of this work is the biases that we hold in the system, and the system reinforces it. The system reinforces it. So equipping our kids is great, but we still got to dismantle this thing a little bit. Wait a minute, that's like almost dismantle a little bit. That's an oxymoron. We got to dismantle the thing. We got to dismantle it. What I want to do is drive you to, so how we're going to solve this. We've been talking about culture, but I think you have it in your packet. We're going to talk about the various cultural teachings, if you will. And we're going to stick to one for the sake of the rest of our time together. And Gloria Ladson-Billing talks about culturally responsive teaching. That's probably more the more known one. And it talks about the teaching pedagogy that recognizes students' cultural references. So how do I put in the curriculum culturally responsive materials and aspects? Also, culturally relevant teaching is what is relevant to kids. For example, if I was planning for you guys, I would look at the data that I had in your, and I would design lessons based on things that are relevant to you. For example, I would do the box scores for some, if we were going to do converting fractions to decimals, all right? So I am going to take what I know. Culturally conscious is the work that we do, and we just want teachers to be purposeful, intentional, and deliberate of understanding how culture interacts with planning. Because if you're not intentional, what's going to happen? You're gonna lose out on that. And sometimes we just develop lessons without the intentionality. The one that we're going to work on today is culturally sustaining. And this is a teaching that perpetuates and fosters linguistic and literal and cultural pluralism. What is cultural pluralism? It's the opposite of color blindness. What is cultural pluralism? That's a fancy word. Anybody want to give a stab at it? Anna Marie, give a stab at it.
Cultural pluralism is the recognition of who's in the room essentially and what they bring with them, what their culture is, what's their background, what's their history, and not saying, oh, whitewashing everybody or pinkwashing everybody or whatever color you want to pick, and everybody's the same. I don't see any race, but it's really saying, oh, I have African American students in my class. I have Latino students in my class. I have Asian students in my class. And even to the depth where, to the acknowledging that all your Latino students are not the same, because some are from Guatemala, some are from Honduras, some are from Mexico. Same thing with your Asian students, some are Vietnamese, some are Chinese, so it's having that awareness of who's in your classroom and what that means in terms of your instruction, I would say.
Absolutely. As we start to look at honoring what the kids bring into the classroom, before we were doing colorblind, I don't see culture or race in my class, so I'm just going to teach them the way I teach. I'm going to teach them the way I teach, and not recognizing. For example, I asked you guys for permission. What did I ask you for permission? You guys remember that? Anybody remember I asked you guys for permission for something? To use my language in the classroom. Because if I didn't ask for permission and I kept in the Black dialect, some people would be, first of all, you wouldn't understand me. Second of all, some of you guys would be like, whoa, that was not a scholarly engagement, if you will. So now I ushered culturally sustaining practices in the classroom because I needed you guys to honor that I use the Black dialect every once in a while. I want you to honor that. And sometimes we don't honor that because we think it's not good. So we're going to engage in this work. So I'm gonna see if you guys can help me with something. Now, hopefully it comes up. I need you guys to deconstruct something for me. And this is our anticipatory set. We're going to get into strategies now. I don't know if you know the picture or not. I don't know if you know the picture or not. Right? And think about swag, strong with amazing gifts. Okay? Strong with amazing gifts. Right? Who's this? Trayvon Martin. Right? He's going to bring his culture into the classroom. We're going to have to deconstruct it and extrapolate it. And then I want you at your table, I want you to tell me what amazing gifts academically he brings into the schoolhouse. Because if I'm going to engage in culturally sustaining practice, I got to look at that as strength. Is everybody with me? So let's go through it. If you see me, you know I can navigate an entire city with $1. I can get the best service at a restaurant. I know how to be in an AP class and keep my neighborhood friends. I know what it means to be dissed. I can live without electricity. I know a closed mouth doesn't get fed. I can entertain an entire room of people with my personality and humor. I know how to get the best deals at a church rummage sale. I know how to stay safe in my neighborhood. I know how to win a spoken word contest. If you know me, you know I'm not broke. Kids bring their culture, their language, their everything to the classroom. This is hard. This is hard for a lot of folks because a lot of this stuff is cultural, if you will. I want you to have a conversation and say, what does he bring and what lessons would you have that will be in his wheelhouse, that his sweet spot based on this data? Granted, culturally sustaining teaching practice is about rigor. Don't lower the bar. He's given us some real rigorous learning attributes. Have that conversation at your table. Don't go to the lesson yet. Figure out what the kid has. Don't go to the lesson because You got to extrapolate. There's a lot of data here. Okay, so we're going to solutionitis already. Don't go to the solution of this is a lesson. I want you to extrapolate. What are some things that, for example, let's do one. I can entertain an entire room with of people with my personality and humor. What do you think he brings at a very high level if he can do that? Interpersonality. What else? He has verbal ability to what extent from a Common Core perspective? Metaphors, similes, and idioms. Isn't that the thing that's stopping EL3 kids to get into EL4? Among other things. Right? Right? So if I just say he has language ability, I won't say that this boy knows how to manipulate language. That's a powerful skill. You see what I'm saying? I want you guys to go in and find all of that goodies he's got. If I can get around the city with $1, what skills do I have? What else? I can possibly interpret maps and informational text. Come on now. See, I want us to think that this is not mutually exclusive than teaching Common Core, but we don't see it. Is everybody with me on this one? So let's go deep with it. Let's go deep with it. Identify an area and says, what do you know he can do? Not what do you think he can do. What do you know he can do? Let's go. This is the practice, y'all. Y'all wanted strategies. Okay, come on back to me, good people. We're getting a lot of data today. We got kid data, we got academic data, which we spend 90% of our time developing stuff from is the academic data. And then we're getting data this way. If we're interested, well, if we're committed to connecting kids to this school experience, we got to go across the street and go get them and have them come over. We've been doing this. And actually, it's called the law, compensatory education. You better come. If not, I'm going to put your mama in jail. Right? We've been doing this. And some of our kids was like, and if we don't understand what this means, we'll focus on this. If we don't understand what this means, and we already have perceptions of what this is, I'm not sure in most of our high schools, the predictability that this kid is the valedictorian is not that high in Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County. We have to understand this. So someone tell me, what area did you focus on? Table one, what was one area that you focused on that you maybe designed a lesson for? This is the heavy lifting.
We talked about math.
What area in this scenario?
So the fact that he can get around with $1 and that he is good at rummage sales, I mean, I think that says that he can also take that understanding and that knowledge and apply it to high finance and be able to do quite interesting things with math.
Okay, anything else with math that would get him in an AP classroom because of those two attributes? See, we got to know this. What happens in the rummage sale? Give me more. You're negotiating. You're doing point of view. You're doing persuasive essay. But if I don't know anything about a rummage sale, I won't know this boy can persuade. So when we do persuasive essay, he is going to be my model. Is everybody with me? He can do the math, but I'm going to say math is a curriculum. Language is the axe.
On the persuasion piece, we also said he can code switch, so he can actually.
What does that mean?
So code my perspective is like when I'm brown versus when I'm at home versus when I'm in public. So like with my parents, I'm a completely different human being than when I'm with, because I'm expected to speak the language, I'm expected to dress a certain way, but then you go out to the culture where that's not maybe as accepted, and I have to change the language, change my clothes and things like that. So you know how to navigate between both, and I know how to not to get kicked out of my family, but I know how to be accepted and get a job.
A lot of kids of color are code switching, and some kids don't know how to code switch. So sometimes we have to overtly teach situational appropriateness and code switching. But here's the thing that I found with code switching. God, I hate to say this. Mentally, that's not cool. Psychologically, that plays a heavy burden on kids of color.
Exhausting.
It's exhausting as hell. And sometimes if you don't know the code, you're saying that I gotta dress like this every day to get access to y'all if I want to gain access, if you will. Because I drive a very high performing car. I don't wear this earring. I wear a loop earring when I'm kind of chilling. I like my hat to the side, and I bump Tupac. And I have tinted windows. That descriptor could be something other than an educator in certain people's eyes. So I have to say, okay, let me put on my armor so I can be accepted. That's mentally draining. So when you get in the car, you go, could you imagine that happening for kids every single day? Now, that's why we got SEL, social emotional learning. But SEL is not going to deal with code switching. They're going to deal with behavior. Is everybody with me on this one? Table 5, what is one of the areas? Thank you very much, ma'am. This is the heavy lifting, y'all. Come on now. They say this is my gifted and talented crew.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Just picking off our long list here, I'm going to go with self-awareness and self-advocacy.
What in here that drove
In line,
you to
I know what it means to be dissed.
Ooh, tell me more.
So he is self-aware. He's aware of how language works, how it pertains to him.
Everybody knows what diss mean, right? Being disrespected. That's one of the D's in our K violations. Disrespected. So he knows when he's being disrespected in the schoolhouse. You know why he knows? Because certain teachers give him the stank eye. Everybody know what I mean? You know how you come into a room and somebody doesn't like you, they give you that nonverbal look? He's a nonverbal kid, so he's gonna know when he's being disrespected in the classroom. Is everybody with me? So that means as a teacher, I'm gonna have to have a culturally, racially safe learning environment where he's not being dissed because he's the only one in AP. Is everybody with me here? So that means as a classroom practitioner, how am I making my classroom racially and linguistically safe to where he doesn't always have to code switch? These are some things that we need to extrapolate. Table 4, thank you. Thank you very much.
At our table, we talked about the student having the emotional intelligence.
What part of the thing that gave you that?
I know how to be in an AP classes and keep my neighborhood friends. So somebody need to have the skills to feel the others around them so then they could respond accordingly. And also I know how to stay safe in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And also he also could negotiate with others to get a good deal as well. So that shows the emotional intelligence and also adaptability as well.
Okay, thank you. Table 3.
We had a long conversation about communication skills.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of tying it for my table on meeting with some high-tech companies and talking about what skills our students need to have to be successful in the future and in these companies, and it was communication. And we were talking about, we feel that he has strong, pretty, I mean, from what we're reading, verbal skills, but also written skills, but also interpersonal communication skills by that whole piece again of the AP class and keep my friends, the being able to get a good deal at the rummage sale, but also win a spoken word contest. That one to me spoke a lot about his communication skills, because anybody that's seen a spoken word contest, you've got to write it, you've got to analyze it, you've got to entertain, you have to, all of those pieces. So I think communication
You
was
gotta know
ours.
audience, gotta know voice.
Yeah.
All of those things. Think about the P21 skills? Creativity, communication, collaborative, and critical. See, but I'm letting. Sometimes we don't see this, and actually, we didn't see it. The bad thing is, we didn't see it. Somebody didn't see that in him, if you will. So what happens? Casualties happen. That is the why for us to understand culturally sustaining practices, because we are going to miss out. And when we miss out on this, it's dangerous out there for him. It's real dangerous out there if we don't see this. If we don't see his swag and plan for him. Wow. Everybody stand up. Get an elbow partner, please. Find the youngest of the elbow partner or triad if you want to. Just quickly, in just 10 seconds, I want you to just share with your neighbor just a kind of reflection from 9 o'clock to 1:45. Just a reflection that you're having right now from 9 o'clock to 1:45. 10 seconds, go. Should be tying it up. Should be tying it up. All right, let's go and have a seat. Let's have a seat. Erica, who did you talk to, darling? What did Arturo say?
Arturo said that he has learned a lot about equity and about how people are thinking about that as applied to the education system.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for showing up, Arturo. Adora, who'd you interview, darling? What did Edie share?
Edie shared that this is something that she's been talking about in our director meetings, actually. And that when she reflected on it, I guess the connection was to that. But talking about how things have to happen at a systems level, but they also have to happen in the classroom level, because that's where that's where it matters.
Absolutely.
And so that's something that she's been talking about and trying to work with the directors to make those connections. So the next step would be, okay, what action? How do we get the word out? How do we spread that?
And if we do it top down, it's too long. It's going to take too long. So we got to do top down support, bottom up. Bottom up. Tony, who'd you interview?
And one of the things Barbara talked about were the graphics on the equity graphics, and that she reflected on the acts that you would need to give the students and finding what that acts is, equipping our students with that.
All right. Rosina, who'd you interview? Okay, what did he share?
He shared that
that this is something he hopes actually something comes out of it and not just a drive-by.
The goal is to continue. The work of equity takes place when the equity guy leaves. No, just kidding. You guys got to do the heavy lifting. I'm gonna leave here fresh, and you guys are gonna leave here intellectually tired, because you guys are doing all the heavy lifting. And I think teachers should be doing the heavy lift. The teachers should be giving the kids the work to do the heavy lifting, but they always leave tired because they're doing all the talking.
I think one of the conversations that Tony and I had while we were doing this is also, this made me really also reflect on me as an educator, even though that I'm not right in the classroom every day anymore. It's that conscious thought of where am I on this and how do I need to continue to grow as a person to be able to do this work.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask this of you, and I'm going to challenge you. You can't be a closet anti-racist leader in Santa Clara anymore, or a situational anti-racist leader. When situations come up, you get out of the closet and go, dun, 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 dun. No, you got to wear that every day. It's like toothpaste out of the tube. You try to put that stuff back, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. So let's just use it. Let's just use it. I'm going to drive you to page 22. Well, let's do this. And I don't want to procrastinate. I'm not going to procrastinate. I'm going to drive you to page 20. I just want to show it to you, and then we're going to come back to it. Okay? Because as I just wanted to share with you around MTSS, and I know that is the framework in which we are putting a lot of eggs in this basket. And it's just a framework. It does actually nothing if we don't have warriors to actually go execute. All right? And here are some strategies that we say is the tahine of MTSS, okay, or the Lowry saw. Here are 10 instructional strategies as you start to look at building your MTSS and building your pedagogical work around MTSS. We utilize these 10 strategies to support districts relative to looking at culture, behavior, and academics. I'm a firm believer the way we're going to solve the MTSS issue, which is not an MTSS issue, is actually a framework, but the disproportionality is not going through the discipline door. We got to go through the academic door. Is everybody with me on this one? Right now, we are going through the discipline door in Santa Clara. We're saying if we can get Dante to shut up and sit down, I can teach him. He's saying, why don't you hurry up and plan a good lesson for me so I can sit down and shut up? Or better yet, that I can talk in the classroom. Maybe I don't have to shut up the learner. But we want him to sit down and shut up and do behavior stuff before I can teach. And the kid is saying, like, why don't you teach something that's exciting so I can get fired up about learning? And we're not going to solve the disproportionality if we go through the behavior door. And let's not get our teachers to bamboozle us and say, you know what, I need classroom management before I could be a good teacher. No, you need good planning to be a good teacher. Is everybody with me on this one? But I'm telling you, we're getting bamboozled in our districts. I need a PBIS strategy. No, you need some time to collaborate. So what we've done is, through the equity inclusion piece, is look at these 10 strategies that really support. And you don't have to come to the county for a 5-day boot camp to implement these. Is everybody with me on no disrespect to the 5-day boot camp from the county? All right. Ooh, I almost lost myself a job. No, just kidding. Just kidding. But these can be some good strategies, again, about validating, affirming, teaching situational appropriateness, engaging peer-to-peer. So these are some real solid strategies that we've really supported some folks with around the work. What we're going to do in our structured potty break, okay? In our structured potty break, page 22. for the next 10, 15 minutes, can we go to the restroom, whatever you're gonna do, but I want you to read page 22, and I want you to mark the text, things that spoke to you, and then I want you to look at page 23, and it talks about saltwater, freshwater fish. Okay, what is a saltwater fish and what is freshwater environment? You have those two, and then this is what you could do as a scenario, either back on your campus, because I want you to utilize this document. Okay, on page 24, it gives you a scenario of a saltwater fish and what learning styles he is exhibiting, and how would you modify your lessons for him. Is everybody with me here? So we're just going to mark the text, it's one page, and then engage in sustaining teaching practices around a saltwater fish. We will start talking about 2:15. I'm going to challenge us. I want you to go to page 24. Page 24, is it the scenario? No, page 23. I apologize. You know, and it may not even be it's page 23. I want you, page 23, it has the two, saltwater, freshwater. I want you to take a look at those attributes, learning attributes, right? Learning styles. If you had to share Common Core performance task, would they be on the left side or would they be on the right side? Common Core performance tasks. You really have to know what the performance tasks are asking. Would they be on the right side or would they be on the left side? Interesting. Can you share with your elbow partner what you would think? The Common Core tasks, would they be in the saltwater environment or would it be in the freshwater environment? Here we go. UDL, left side, right side. So and I'm overhearing you guys because I'm noisy like that. Are you telling me that saltwater fish, Common Core, is the water that saltwater fish should be thriving in? Because I overheard some of you guys said that Common Core, the performance task, on the right side. So you're saying that kids who are diverse learners are actually swimming in their water. If we believe in them. They're already swimming in their own water, if you believe in them. But where's a lot of our teaching, Kimberly? Which is, how do we get teachers to understand that saltwater skills is Common Core? Because they think it's just, if I give it to you, you're going to learn it. Saltwater fish says, give me a blank sheet of paper and let me construct it. Left side, freshwater is asking to consume knowledge. Right side is asking you to produce knowledge. Yeah.
I would say that, I mean, when you mention performance task, I think about the execution and the assessment itself. I don't think about the concept of a performance task. And so I went straight to left side, like you're taking the test, you need to stay quiet, you need to stay in your seat. It takes long concentration, you're staring at the computer screen. So, you know, I went to that place. So I think it's important to differentiate.
Absolutely.
If you give the experience of a performance task during class time, that's different compared to sitting down and taking the state assessment.
When we think of Common Core, we think of outcomes as opposed to skills and knowledge to be attained. Kid to kid do well on this test, if you will. But the performance task is asking kids to extrapolate, they're asking kids to analyze, evaluate, synthesize, and so on and so forth. That's the skill a kid needs to walk away with school with, as opposed to getting a 3 or a 4 on the CAS, if you will. So when we do this, because I'm not sure, this is old school, we didn't go back to the performance task and deconstruct the performance task. What is the skill in the learning that the baby needs to attain to do well on the test, if you will? Remember we used to deconstruct standards about 7, 8 years ago? And then when Common Core came, we stopped doing that because we said that was a tedious process. It was a tedious process, but we learned a lot. Is everybody with me? It was like, your parents ever give you like castor oil when you were sick? It tasted bad going down, but it made you feel better. Deconstructing standards was just like that. It hated it sitting in rooms for hours doing that. But you know, when I was done, I knew the hell out of standards. Is everybody with me on that one? I don't think we did that with Common Core. We just looked at the end result and so on and so forth. So we asked, what is the learning objective of the in standard? We struggle with that. We just copy it from Houghton Mifflin or whatever, 3D or whatever, and just put it up on the board. But we don't know what the skill the kids need to know and walk away with. I'm going to say this to you. We have a lot of kids who are in saltwater, but we're teaching in freshwater. And we don't understand why we can't connect to them. You guys already told me what happens when a saltwater fish swims in fresh water. Y'all told me that. They end up dying. Or we move them up the pyramid. Or put them on somewhere on an umbrella. Whatever thing, whatever pictorial. Yes.
I agree with that, but I also feel that you have a bunch of teachers that, and will defend teachers. They're told that they have to produce and do this and teach, and they're used to the fresh water, even if they themselves are salt water. They're used to and need to practice and are expected to teach with this freshwater mentality from their administration or whatever it is. So it's hard because I'm saltwater all the way, right? And I can't do any of this stuff. But I would, your expectation is that you have to do a certain thing by a certain date, by a certain time. You got to get these certain scores. And if they don't fit this mold, then it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And it automatically becomes an issue.
Absolutely. And I'm going to defend teachers as well. First of all, the pacing guide, which is the tail, should not be wagging the dog. Is everybody with me on this one? So we're allowing the pacing guys to hurry up and do some stuff. And actually, if you are on that rote mentality of getting through the pacing guide, you're probably working at DOK1 all the time. Because DOK 3 and 4 requires you to have to ask kids why. Because what evidence do you have? Give me your point of view. So if you're plugging through the pacing guide, you're probably working at recall. Because we got a benchmark in 9 weeks. Correct? We got to question the current, remember the slide in equity of the current reality? We got to start to question the current reality. Is it making sense? Here's another thing. And I don't want anybody to beat me up. Don't throw anything at me. I've yet to see a teacher get fired because a kid didn't learn. I've seen principals get fired. I've seen superintendents lose their job. But I've yet to see a teacher get fired because they give 60% Fs in algebra. They just get moved to another school. They do, they put them in kindergarten. I don't know. I don't know what happens to them, but they don't get fired. So my question to us is that self-induced accountability? Because we don't get fired. We have a pretty good gig. And we said that we can even have certain Latino and African American kids not get it and be okay with it. We gotta question that. We gotta question that. I'm gonna show you guys a video and then we'll close. You guys ready? And I want you guys to leave here with something, okay? And I want you to leave here understanding your compelling why. I'm going to say this, as we continue to do this work, we have to make it a compelling why and let the how and the what come later. We haven't given our best yet. We've just given our first. When we go back to the Ponderosa and we're going to start action planning, let's give our ghetto version, as opposed to saying, here's another meeting, let's just get through it. Because if we don't, there's kids who die on the vine if we don't share our compelling why. Thank you guys very, very much. I appreciate it tremendously. Can you guys do this for me? I know there's going to be an eval that's going out. Can you take out your electronic things, the browser, and spend a little bit of time of just putting that in for me? And then Kathy is going to, I think, give out an eval as well. Yeah. So if you can type in your browser here, and the one online will give us immediate feedback. Again, this is an institute. Your feedback is tremendously important for us to design things that work for you, okay? That work for you as well as your school. Again, thank you guys very much. Today went pretty fast. Look forward to engaging you guys more and more. Good luck, okay, this year. You guys take it easy. Oh, thank you. Thank you guys.